finally I was in a PhD program at UCLA. I was going to become a professor in political science. And then I dropped out. And at the age of 26 is when I had this epiphany where I realized, you know, you live once.
Yeah.
So you can't live to do what your parents want you to do, what your girlfriend wants you to do, what your friends want. You got to do, if you're lucky enough to find your passion, you got to do that.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Jibber with Jabber. Today I'm actually going to dedicate this episode to a friend of mine, Mazia, who was a big fan of yours, who passed away not long ago, and he would be jiggling in his grave right now.
Oh, wow.
Like, he might even come back to life because out of laughter that he's going to have on this episode. Mazia, salam.
سلام
خوبی چطوری؟
باریکلا
همه چی خوب؟
اهلا و سهلا
چه خبر؟
خوبی باریکلا باریکلا
دمت گرم. باش.
Well done, man.
No, bro, I was raised around Iranians.
Yeah.
I think I was kidnapped into being raised around Iranians. Like, my whole
That's how we
crew
roll.
was just like everyone. Sadaf, Mazia, Ruzbe, Arash.
yeah.
You guys are getting a plug here.
Yeah.
Amir Reza, like all
Yeah.
of them. And my neighbor, her mum, she refused to speak to me in English.
Hilarious.
Refused.
Yeah.
So she'd knock on my door and she'd make me go throw the rubbish and the trash and stuff, but she'd tell me in Iranian.
Yeah.
And it got to the point that I was like, I need to start
How do
learning.
you say rubbish in Iranian, in Farsi?
In Farsi, rubbish. Well, I would say khar, but that's not the right one.
Ashghal.
Yeah. Ashghal. Yeah.
Ashghal.
But see, the thing is, this is what I like about languages. The Middle East and Arab languages, we attribute these things, these words to people and like all of this stuff. We have like random things that we say to people that in English we don't really say, but you'd be like, oh, that girl's this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
Shows how nice we are as people.
Yeah, man. We're
How
good
was the
people.
show? How was the show yesterday?
Show was good. World Trade Center, big venue. They had to limit the capacity because of COVID. So that, you know, a big room like that seats 3,000, but they're only allowed to have, let's say, 12 or 1,300, takes some of the energy out. But that said, it was still a fun show. People seemed to have fun. They were spread out all over the place. So it was, it looked like a good number of people. The one thing that was an interesting thing that happened was the stage was situated in a way where when people wanted to go to the bathroom, they had to walk past the stage.
Oh, no way.
And as a comedian, you have to acknowledge that. Yeah. So it started once, then twice, then 3 times, then like 10 times. I've never had so many people piss during a show.
Yeah, right.
It was crazy. I don't know if it's because it's hot out. I don't know what it was, but like half the show was me just talking to people about their bathroom break.
Yeah, so it turned into a crowd work show.
Turned into a crowd work show. Yeah, exactly.
And how do you feel about it? Let's talk about that, because, I mean, what got you into comedy in the beginning? Because obviously, I think coming from our backgrounds and cultures, it's not our parents' dream.
No, so when I was a kid, I grew up in Northern California in America, and Eddie Murphy, when I was around 8 or 9 years old, Eddie Murphy became a superstar, and I just fell in love with Eddie Murphy and what he was doing. I wanted to be like Eddie Murphy. So I started doing plays when I was in junior high school. In high school, I actually played Batman, by the way. We did a play. We did a musical of Batman, and I played Batman. And then I wanted to go into acting, but my parents, being Iranian parents, Middle Eastern parents, they wanted me to be a lawyer, doctor, engineer. So I got, distracted for a while, started going after other things, and finally I was in a PhD program at UCLA. I was going to become a professor in political science, and then I dropped out. And at the age of 26 is when I had this epiphany where I realized, you know, you live once.
Yeah.
So you can't live to do what your parents want you to do, what your girlfriend wants you to do, what your friends want. You got to do, if you're lucky enough to find your passion, you got to do that. And so I just made comedy a priority then. I got back into some comedy acting classes, and from there I found a stand-up comedy class, and that was it. That was 23 years ago, and I've been going ever since.
Wow. Where was your first performance?
My first stand-up performances were done. I did a couple of open mic shows in Los Angeles. There was a place called Gallagher's. There's a comedian named Alex Borstein. She's on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She was on Mad TV. She's done a lot of. She's the voice of the mom in, I think, either American Dad or the other one. What's the other?
Family Guy.
Family Guy. Yeah. She's the voice of the mom on Family Guy. Anyway, she was a friend of mine, and she was doing stand-up, and she said, hey, there's a place I'm going to be doing stand-up as a bar in the Valley in Los Angeles called Gallagher's. So you want to come? So I went with her, and I did my first open mic there, and then I didn't really do stand-up for a while. Then when I got into the stand-up comedy class, that's when we really started to. One of the things you learn in when you talk to any comedian, they go, the key to success in comedy is getting on stage as much as you can, writing as much as you can. So we're getting up on stage 5-10 times a week. We did shows in coffee shops, church basements, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, strip clubs, you name it, we did it. And that was it. And from there, I just kept going.
How does it work in those places where strip clubs, Alcoholic Anonymous people, where people are going in there, they're trying to like, you know, they don't want to be there anyway because they're kind of like, well, I'd rather just go have a drink and just get this over with. And you're just like, no, I've got some jokes for you.
Well, you know, a lot of times they tell them. So like the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, I remember that, you know, these guys were looking for entertainment. Back then, I didn't know much about Alcoholics Anonymous. So like when I showed up, you know, first of all, what happens is comedians, and it's happening in Dubai now too, comedians find different venues and then they say, okay, I'm going to book this venue. So they'll go find a coffee shop or they'll find a restaurant that has a quiet night on a Tuesday, and they'll say, hey, will you give me a little bit of money to book some comedians? We bring business to you on a Tuesday. And usually the guy goes, sure. And so that comedian then goes out and books the comics to perform. So those guys are running the show, and then you become the performer. So I would get like the Alcoholics Anonymous, some comedian was like, yeah, I book an AA meeting. Oh, great. And I'm just looking for stage time. I'll do it. And they go, it's great. You go there, the people are very nice, and it's on a Tuesday, whatever. So, and they go, it's always packed. And you drive down, and this would always happen to you. You'd go to a venue and you show up, and they'd be like, and it would be like, you know, half empty or a quarter full, very like not full at all. And the booker would always be like, oh, you should have been here last week. It was packed. You're like, really, dude? So you show up at the AA. I remember at the AA meeting, again, I didn't know much about Alcoholics Anonymous. Like they're very nice, they're very supportive, but they're very serious as well when it comes to recovery. And so I just remember like one of the jokes I did when I first went up there, I was like, you know, the room was, again, instead of like whatever 50 people, it was 10 people. So I went up on stage and I'm like, hey, good to be here. I go, you know, I was told that the room was going to be full, but I guess they didn't come. I said they went out for a drink. And they're all looking at me like, that's not funny. We're trying to recover here. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. The strip club was interesting. The strip club was there was a guy. So the strip club had the main room, and then it had a side room. So this guy had gotten the side room and was just doing a comedy show. So the people at the strip club were not there for comedy. They were there for the strip club. And the way that worked was, it's called a bringer, which means a booker will book a bunch of comedians and tell each comedian, you need to bring 5 people. Everyone's got to bring 5 people because
5 guests.
5 guests. Okay. Because if you start, it's called a bringer room. When you start, nobody knows who you are, right? They don't know who Jibber is, so you know, you're not Kevin Hart. When Kevin Hart puts his name up, people go. But when a new comedian puts their name up, no one's coming. So every comic needs to bring 5 guests, 10 guests, whatever that number is. And if enough people bring their guests, now we have a full room. So this guy had done a show, and he's like, listen, I'll pay everybody $5 for every guest that you bring. And this is my first time I was getting paid to do stand-up. And I remember I was very new, so I didn't want that many people to show up. So I told a few friends, I said, listen, guys, you guys come. If I get 5 of you out there, I make $25, I'm happy. Well, they told other friends. Next thing you know, we show up, and I have 31 guests. Wow. So I'm going to be making $155 that night. And the other comedians each had brought like 2 guests, you know, not that many. So the guy who was booking it realized, well, you know, once I go on stage, my guests might leave, because that happens a lot. People come to see you and they're like, hey man, I'm out. Because we're all amateurs. We're all really bad. So of course, since I had 31 guests, he put me up last. So I had to wait for
everyone else.
Everyone else had to wait. So it was this night where, and by the way, we showed up at the club, and he goes, hey man, I got some good news, bad news. I go, what is it? He goes, good news is show's still on. He goes, bad news is the owners of the strip club sold the strip club last night to some new owners. And he goes, and they took their microphones. I go, what? Oh, that's random. I go, why would you take microphones? Like if you say they took their best stripper, that's one thing. Why would somebody take their microphones? He's like, I don't know, but we're gonna do the show without microphones. I was like, what? Mate. So we're on stage without microphones, like a monologue, doing our shows. Everyone's horrible. myself included, but everyone's and my guests have to sit through really bad comedy, so they keep looking. I'm in the back of the room. They keep looking back at me like, when you going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going on last. And then this guy goes up. He's horrible. The guy who was running the room. The reason he runs the room is so that he can have a place to perform and practice. So he's doing his jokes are the worst jokes ever. And then at one point, one guy's on stage and some dude walks in, because this is a side room at the strip club. So guys sometimes like can bring a girl in there, and I don't know. This guy walks into this guy walks into the room, and he's sitting in like the center of the whole room. And he's got the stripper like on his lap, and he's talking to her like there's no show going on in front of him. And then the comedian who's on stage was this like kind of this like nerdy Jewish comic. He's like, hey, excuse me, sir, we got a show going on here. And then the guy's like, all right, keep doing it.
I'm about to have a show going on here too.
Yeah, exactly. And the guy was dressed like a gangbanger type. He was threatening.
So you're in the back
like, we got a show. And the guy's like, keep going. And then everyone felt uncomfortable, like this guy's about to like beat up this comic. Yeah. And then the comic's like, oh, okay, I'll just keep going. And like he finished his set, and we're all like, shit. And by the time I got up, my friends were just like exhausted. And the truth is, I went on, did my show. This was like probably 22 years ago, 23 years ago. And to this day, there's a handful of those guys who came to that show. They never came back to any other show. I think that was it. They were like, this is the worst experience ever. This is awkward. I don't like it. So that was my first time I got paid $155.
That's amazing.
At a strip club.
I would have been one of the guys that stayed. I would have been like, dude, Maz is doing places in strip clubs, dude. It's like, go watch, whatever. I would have made deals with the strippers.
A few of the guys would disappear during the show, and then they come back. I was like, where were you?
What else do they want?
Bathroom
You should have made a deal with the strippers. You should have been like, listen, okay, so you offer them a dance 30.
Yeah.
And a bit of comedy for an extra 5. And then they come in there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this is something that's crazy to me. 9/11 happens. We're not the best people in the world to be around. And then you and your boys go, no, listen, I think we should start a tour of comedy.
Yeah.
How did that come about? How did Axis of Evil even...
Axis of Evil started, so in the year 2000, when one of the intifadas had started with the Israelis, Palestinians, they were fighting. It was really hot. And there's the owner of the Comedy Store. Her name was Mitzi Shore. She's passed away since. Yeah. But Mitzi Shore was kind of, they call her the Yoda of comedy, or just like she was a god of comedy in many ways, because her club, the Comedy Store, is famous for having Eddie Murphy, Jim Carrey, Jay Leno, David Letterman, Richard Pryor, more recently Sebastian Maniscalco. Every top, Bill Burr, anyone who you've seen on film, television, these people all went through the Comedy Store. It's the mecca of comedy. So it had been one of my dreams to be there. So I became a regular at the Comedy Store. That means Mitzi watches you, she likes you, she says, come be part of this team. So I was there performing, and at that time in 2000, I was the only comedian of Middle Eastern descent there. And Mitzi was Jewish, and she was also someone who thought comedy could bring peace. So she said, once the conflict started, she said, she goes, this is in 2000, before 9/11. She goes, I think there's going to be a need for a positive voice for Muslims and Middle Easterners in the world. She goes, we're going to need that. So she goes, I want to do a comedy show. We'll put it up once a month, once every few months, and we're going to call it the Arabian Nights. That's what she wanted to do. And she said, so again, I was Iranian, and they said, do you know any other Middle Eastern comedians? And I had seen Aaron Cater, who was half Palestinian, half Mormon. So
half Palestinian, half Mormon.
Yeah, the mother's Mormon, the father's Palestinian. Good people. I met the parents; they're great people. And so I'd seen him. Mitzi had seen Ahmed perform somewhere, so she knew of him. There was a handful of other people. She put us all together. Anybody who was brown, that was not Latino or African American, was on our show. So we had Indians, we had Armenians, you name it, we had it. There was a guy named Sam Tripoli, who's a friend of mine still. Yeah. He's Armenian. So we started performing as the Arabian Nights in the year 2000. So what would happen is, when you're a regular at the Comedy Store, you get to perform on regular shows throughout the week. But every 6 months, the booker would call you, go, hey, we're doing a special show, Arabian Nights, Saturday night. Great. So we do that, and it was all Middle Eastern lineup. And as the shows would go on, a lot of times Iranians would come up after the show, who'd come to the show. Hey, really had a good time. By the way, Iranians, we're not Arabs. I go, I know. I said, I didn't title it. The lady titled it. So we kept doing the Arabian Nights, and after a while, I don't know who said it, but somebody decided, like jokingly was like, oh, we're the Axis of Evil. And then that's when Ahmed, me, and Aaron Cater, we thought, oh, that's a better name. Because what had happened was in 2000 and after 9/11, George Bush gave the famous speech where he said there's an axis of evil. He goes, it's Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. And basically, as I was watching that, even though he was trying to say that those governments were causing problems in the world, to me it sounded like he's saying the people of the, I mean, and I think to average Americans, they don't distinguish between the government and the people. So I say, you know, dude, when you say this is not good for Iranians or Iraqis, you know, in America, or North Koreans. I don't know if we had North Koreans. Anyway, long story short, we thought, hey, that's a good way to lampoon this term Axis of Evil. We're going to call it the Axis of Evil Comedy Tour. So in 2005 was when me, Ahmed, and Aaron decided to take that title, do our first big show in Washington, D.C. We funded it ourselves because nobody was giving us, there was a comedy club there called the Improv in D.C. They were allowing us to come and perform on a Tuesday night, on a Wednesday night, and we would sell it out. And then we said, give us a weekend. And they would say, well, you guys aren't headliners. We don't know about that. So we said, you know what? Screw you. We're going to go get our own theater. There was a theater, 1,400-seat theater called the Lisner Auditorium. We paid for it. We set it up, sold it out, 1,400 seats. And that started making noise. Like our managers and everybody back in LA was like, wait a minute. Who was your promoter? We go, we promoted it. Oh. Then we go to San Francisco, sell out 1,000 seats. Who's your promoter? We're promoting it. Then word gets back to some production companies in Los Angeles. These guys are out there doing their own thing, and they're, you know, making it happen. And then we shot the special, and the special called the Axis of Evil Comedy Tour came out on Comedy Central in 2007. We added Dino Bidala, who's Palestinian as well. And that was what really helped us take off, because what happened was that came out at the same time that YouTube was really starting to take off. So people were taking our clips and circulating them. And it was before social media, so you weren't putting it on a Facebook or on an Instagram or on a YouTube, I mean on a Twitter. People were taking the YouTube clip and they would send that link to their 50 people on their email list, not knowing who they're sending it to. Just, here, everyone on my email list, look at this guy. So I was on some people's emails lists, and my clip was circulating. I would see my own clip going in circles. I was like, oh, this is taking off. And it was the Persian, like the cat clip, and some other clips. And that's when I really started noticing people were finding out who I was, who the group was. And that also then led to us becoming known in the region. And then we sold the Axis of Evil Comedy Tour to Showtime Arabia at the time. They started airing it. And then we organized the tour at the end of 2007. We did 5 countries. We did 27 sold-out shows in 30 days. It was just like rock and roll. We'd show up, anywhere we showed up, there was major press wanting to interview us and what's going on. I felt like the Beatles, you know. They were like, we're going to go here, we're going to go there. We were filming it. We had people, you know, like in Lebanon, we did the Casino du Liban, and we were supposed to do 1 show, 1,000 seats. Then they put it on sale, sold out. 2 shows, sold out. 3 shows, so 5 shows back to back. Wow. In Dubai, we did 10 shows at a theater in the Dubai Mall that sat 500 people, so that's about 5,000 seats. Then we added an outdoor show in Media City with 2,500 more people. I mean, it was just like it was amazing. It was a great experience, and that's kind of what helped us land in the region. And that, by the way, was the first time where there was a group of American comedians who'd come to the Middle East to do shows for the people of the Middle East. And I honestly feel like that helped. I know there was a couple guys already doing it, like there was Nemar Abu Nasser in Beirut, and there was a couple people here and there, but nobody was doing it. And I think that tour really helped ignite the comedy scene. And here we are 14 years later, and every country you go to has its own scene. And it's cool to see that, and yeah, we were lucky enough to be a part of that.
You were the Beatles. You were like the Arabian. You were
the
scarabs.
We were the well, whatever. What's the bug out here?
The scarabs. I don't know. Yeah, you were a scarab.
Yeah, we were the scarabs.
Yeah,
we were
that's
yeah, exactly.
Did you? Okay, so how did you feel about backlash and all that? Because obviously, doing something like that, you're going to get people, no matter what you do. If you're selling flowers, there's going to be some guy that's going to be against you selling flowers. Was there any fear about the backlash and the stuff that you could have?
It wasn't the fear of backlash. First of all, that's when I was first introduced to social media and how, you know, when you go to a comedy show, before social media, I go to a comedy show or I could go to any show, perform. Some people are going to like it, some people aren't. Those people who don't, most of them just go home and never come back. If they really, back in the day, if they really didn't like it, they might write a letter to your, you know, fan page, and they send it to you, and you get a letter, and oh, I didn't like the show. Okay. Now with social media, you're not only talking to the people in the room, now you're talking to people in the world. Somebody on the other side of the world can see your stuff, and they could take it out of context. They could not like it. I mean, listen, the fact is, it's actually good not to be liked. I tell people, I go, when you start getting people not liking you, that's a good sign. That means people know you. Because, and by the way, also, if everybody likes you, then I think that you're not really saying anything. Like you should be pushing the envelope and making people a little uncomfortable. So I remember I did some joke about like Gandhi or something, and then I saw the comments, and people were like arguing about like Gandhi and Muslims and Jews. I'm like, how did this? I was talking about Gandhi. Now they're like peace, and then now they're like, yeah, Muslims are this, Jews are that. You know, well, we're better than. And I was like, holy shit! It just became this like it just deteriorated. So you're always gonna have that, and you can't worry about that. You know, there's especially nowadays it's gotten crazy. So nowadays you'll get one thing on Twitter. Somebody posts something on Twitter like, oh, this, whatever. Maz said, I don't know. Maz said frogs are, you know, frogs are disgusting. And then you get like the frog lobby. How dare you? Frogs are animals. You shouldn't talk about frogs. So you can't worry about that, and it usually washes over. But when we came to the region, one thing that they kept telling us, they said, you can, because, you know, there's obviously here, there's censors. So they said, all the promoters would say, the promoters that listen, the guys, we've been told, talk about whatever you want, but no sex, no religion, no politics. We're like, all right, well, that's going to be a short show.
That's my bit.
Exactly. But no, we got around it. People get around it. People talk about stuff. You know, just last night when I was doing my shows, I was cursing. I was, you know, making references and stuff, and didn't seem to like. There was no censors or anything.
They're good here. And I mean, look, most of the country is expats anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you feel about this whole? Because look, I'm not a comedian.
Yeah.
But even I can't deal with this cancel culture that's going around now. I think if anybody should be left alone, it's comedians. Just let them do what they're doing. Let them make a joke. Let them be borderline racist. Let them be, because it's jokes, it's comedy, it's whatever. Yeah. How do you feel about people finding a video from 1925 when you accidentally, or not even accidentally, when you know you said something, and then they're just like, oh, we must cancel this whole person's career now because they did that. Or
well, whatever. I got a couple of things. First of all, I say, because a lot of comedians are complaining about that. Oh, cancel culture. I say, no, listen, man. The world is moving forward. You have a choice as an artist. You either move with it or you fight it. So I have kids. I got a 10-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son. They are more progressive than I was or ever will be. They're teaching me things. So, for example, a little while back, we were talking about, we have neighbors. Our neighbor, our old neighbors, the dad is black, the mother is white. And we're talking, and whatever, I'm talking to my wife. I go, yeah, you know, Kevin and Ann, you know, Kevin's black, Ann's white, blah, blah, blah. And then I turn around, and my kids, like, their jaws are, like, open. They're staring at me. I go, what's wrong? He's not black, Daddy. He's African-American. And I go, oh. And I thought, my first reaction was like, come on. But the second reaction was like, wait a minute. These kids are progressed. They are ahead of us. They're at a point where they're not seeing color as much. They're more integrated. Even if you look like 20, 30 years ago in the States, you know, gay marriage wasn't accepted. 50 years ago, interracial marriage wasn't accepted. So we've come a long way where those things are accepted. And if the language has to change some, then I think I'm all for it. I'm all for, like you said, like some people going through Black Lives Matter last summer, a lot of people were like, I'm not racist. I'm just saying black people need to figure it out. I'm like, dude, stop making excuses. Let's call a spade a spade. Black people have been oppressed in this country for years and years. And if you look at the history, they did not have the opportunities. And there was a lot of things that were systemically done to keep them down. So whereas they were giving these loans to white families, they weren't giving it to black families. Black people didn't count. They were like they counted as 3/5 on the vote as people. And so there's been systemic racism for years and years. And so some people use cancel culture as an excuse to be like, I can't say whatever I want about women and black people. And I go, listen, women as well, they're stepping up. They're saying enough of your bullshit. Men have messed up the world as it is. Enough. Women are stepping up. So with all that said, I don't buy into this cancel culture language as much, because I will tell you, usually a lot of times people that are talking about cancel culture tend to be on the right politically, and they go, well, the left is canceling me. I go, listen, as somebody who's pretty left-leaning with my politics, the right has been trying to cancel me for a long time, because the right will tell you, don't talk about religion. Don't talk about our president. Even in the United States, when I was doing shows under George Bush and then under Trump for sure, there's people, you can't talk about our president. I go, so you're trying to cancel me. Yeah. I go, you're saying there's cancel culture, but I can't. You're telling me what I can't talk about, but when I tell you you can't, use whatever the N-word or something, you say that's too far. Like, come on. So there's that aspect of it. That said, you're right. When people go back to someone's act from 20 years ago, they go, look at what he said. We also got to have some tolerance of context, right? So if the person, like Jimmy Fallon famously got in trouble because he did like Chris Rock impressions back in the day, and like I think he was in blackface. And so if you look at the time, back then it was accepted, and even Chris Rock was like, oh, that's funny, Jimmy's doing me, right?
It's a fine line, huh?
Yeah, and if you come back and go, listen, I see where we're at now, and I apologize for that if that bothered or upset anybody. And back then our minds weren't even wired for it yet, So now I don't think it's right to say, oh, now his career should end because he did something back then in a culture when it was accepted to do that. You go watch any movie from the 80s, you're going to see something that... I was watching Trading Places with my kids, one of my favorite movies, and it's Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and great fun, everything's great. Towards the end, there's a silly scene where Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, Jamie Lee Curtis, and this other actor, I don't know his name, he's an old British actor, they wear costumes in order to like trick somebody on a train. They're all dressed up. So Eddie walks in, he's dressed as like an African prince, and he walks in, he's got like he's like boo-ba-doo, and he's doing that. And then Jamie Lee Curtis comes in, and she's dressed as like a German or Swedish mountain climber or something. She's like, hey, good to be here. She's like, and then the British guy walks in, he's dressed as a priest. And then Dan Aykroyd walks in, he's dressed as a Rastafarian black guy. He's blackface, and he's like, what's up, man?
I remember that scene. Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah, he's like, what's up, man? Good to see you, man. So they were all in on the joke. Nobody blinked back then. Everyone thought that's hilarious because it just, the rule of comedy as well is just get it more and more extreme. So
as
the
outrageous
fact that,
as it can be.
so you're waiting for Dan Aykroyd to walk in, I don't know, dressed as like a mafia guy, and he walks in dressed as a Rastafari. That just goes, that takes every outfit and goes to this, So for us back then it was funny, but watching it with our kids now, again, they kind of turn to us and they're like, is this okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's blackface. I was like, I don't know if that's okay. And so it's not okay. But again, I wouldn't cancel Dan Aykroyd for that. I would just say, oh, back then this was something that worked, but now it wouldn't. So I think complaining about cancel culture is an easy thing to do. I understand people get upset when people come after them because it's very frustrating. I've had people come at me from the right and the left. And a lot of times they misinterpret what you've said or done. That's the other thing.
They're not smart enough to get the joke either. Sometimes it just goes right way over their head.
Or they just take a little clip out of something you did, and they come at you. Like I did something that was, again, a very left-leaning audience. And again, I'm very left-leaning, but they got upset because I was on a panel with this girl who's a female comedian. And she said something, I said something, and then I kind of interrupted her in responding. But when you're on a panel with comedians, whether they're guys or girls, you learn early on you need to jump in. You can't sit there and wait. You got to jump in. So I jumped in and I we talked and it felt fine. And then one day I wake up on my Twitter's going crazy because they posted it as a podcast. People were like, I can't believe Maz Jobrani just cut off this girl, and he's trying to mansplain to her. And I was like, oh my God. And then eventually I reached out to the comedian. I go, did I do something wrong? I'm sorry. She goes, no, I can handle myself. What are you talking about? Yeah, and so people were getting angry for her. And that's one of those where you just got to let it, you got to
let it move on. Look, if we're going to go back to the days, like in old TV, men would be slapping women in the face. That's the way I see. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? It just it's like things have changed, dude. You got to just move on with it. Yeah. Let what happen. Unless it was a political speech where it was in the middle of Times Square where the guy got on the mic and started saying some racist stuff.
Yeah, listen, obviously there's people who are getting canceled for Harvey Weinstein. Those are really serious things. Those are crimes. But yeah, if it's something that the person said a long time, and they've grown and they've changed, we all evolve, right? So if somebody goes, listen, back then that's how I saw the world, I've evolved. My own mother I've seen evolve in America, right, from the time she came to where she is now. So I think a lot of people change, and I think to judge people on things from back then, again, as long as it's not some sort of Nazi crap.
Exactly.
Then,
Look, all anyone's got to do is show them a picture of them when they were 13 and go, look, I thought this looked cool. It's obvious I'm not the same person anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nuts, man.
Yeah.
So when you came to America when you were 6, right?
Yeah.
You were quoted to say we packed for 2 weeks and stayed for 35 years, right?
Yeah. Now 40 something years.
Now in these days, this is a tricky question. You can dodge it if you like.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to come out that there's, America's kind of had its hand in destabilizing Iran, whether it be sanctions and coups and all of this stuff. Do you ever reflect on that or have any kind of?
I'm gonna pass on that thing. No, I could care less. I'm not gonna. No, it's not starting to come out. It's been out. Yeah. I mean, the U.S. was the guy who orchestrated the coup d'état in 1953. So in '53. Iran had a prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh. He was the prime minister, and then there was the royal family under the Shah, and those like in any country, those two both had a certain amount of power. So the parliament had power, and the monarchy had power. At the time, Mossadegh was more powerful, I believe, as a leader of the country, and this was '53. As you know, the Brits benefited from Iranian oil.
I don't like the way you said that. You said that like
well, you're Brits. Lebanese.
You said that like
you're Lebanese. No,
I didn't take part in any of them.
You have a British accent. You're not. You're Lebanese.
I'm not even Lebanese. I've never been. But what I'm saying is the way you said Brits is like I had a hand in all of this stuff. I had no hand in any of it. They did. But they did a lot of shit that I am not proud of.
So they had benefited from Iranian oil, and so in '53, Mossadegh sees that the British petroleum is benefiting from Iranian oil more than Iranians are. So he goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to nationalize oil. I'm going to take our oil back. Of course, the Brits don't like that. And that's when the British go to the Americans and they say, listen, this guy Mossadegh is trying to take the oil, but more importantly, if he takes over, gets control, now Iran at the time first of all is geopolitically situated. It's right next to Russia, and this is the early '50s. So we're talking about communism versus it was the Cold War. So the British tell the Iranians, the British tell the Americans, they say if this Mossadegh gains control and nationalizes oil, he's also very left-leaning, and Iran is going to go communist. So they play the communist card with the Americans, and the Americans go, well, we can't let that happen. So there's an actual book written by the guy. His name was Kermit Roosevelt. He was like the grandson, I think, of Teddy Roosevelt. He wrote a book about how he helped mastermind the CIA overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh, and then that led to them installing the Shah as the powerful ruler of the country. And then under the Shah, the country has like 20-something years of prosperity. As the economy's getting better, he is doing what's called the White Revolution, which is he basically is modernizing. He's, Farsi's becoming the language that everyone, because Iran has so many different segments.
Dialects.
So everyone's, Farsi is becoming the language that everyone's using, and the country's moving in the right direction in many ways. However, under human rights, it still suffers because the Shah, being a king, still rules with an iron fist when it comes to any kind of criticism, etc. So anyway, all of that led to having enough different groups that were against the Shah that then eventually led to the revolution of 79. Now, some people, if you want to get into conspiracies, some people feel that the West had something to do with that as well, because they say, a lot of Iranians say that they think that the West thought, America thought, that the Shah was getting too powerful and they wanted to get rid of him. That's what they say. I don't know if I buy that. But America's always, America's been involved with destabilizing a lot of places. And I'm hoping that we are learning from that and starting to get away from that, but time will tell.
That's your best joke ever that you've ever said from the beginning of comedy till now.
Well, I think with the woke world that we're in right now, I do feel there's a push. There really is, because you start to see, again, I'm telling you, man, as unbelievable as a lot of this stuff felt, like years ago, we're like, gay marriage is going to be legal, marijuana is going to be legal, like, all this weird. The world is making progress to the point where I don't know what the future holds. There's still going to be the powerful that are oppressing the powerless, but it might not be a nation state thing, as opposed to companies, as opposed to actual, private entities that are, like we see now, the disparity of wealth. These individuals are billionaires over and over and over again, and there's people starving in the streets. So I think that the idea of colonialism, in a way, is gone beyond nation states, because nations that have enough people within, depending on where you are, but like a place like the U.S. is really kind of going through a big change with the protests we saw last summer, with the progressiveness we see in Congress now. Even though there's always a backlash, even people on the right, political right, don't want America to be as involved in other countries. For all the criticism I'll give Trump, he wanted to pull America out of a lot of these places. So, but the history of the U.S. is very bloody.
I will take that answer, and I will raise you.
Yes.
Bullshit. You're very optimistic. I don't think, not in our lifetimes, will America ever take their fingers out the pies. And if they do, like you said, it will be on face value to look like it's doing it. But they're too far in, dude. They're too far in to be able to.
But
just
again,
be like,
I'll tell you, it's now, it's not done as the nation as much as it's done through corporations. It's a different.
Which is still the nation.
Yeah,
though.
it's a different thing. Yeah. So then the question becomes: are we able to then control the corporations? That might be more difficult. That's what's being, that's why a Bernie Sanders might be calling for, right? Where he's like, let's tax these guys, let's make them pay more, let's make them have lower income. But there was a great book. It's called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. The author is named John Perkins, and it's great. He talks about how the U.S. works. He says the U.S. used to start by sending in their multinational companies. They would go to a country, whatever that country is, somewhere in South America, Middle East, whatever. They'd look at the situation. They would say, "Oh, you guys need an electric grid. Let us give you that grid." And then the country said, "We don't have enough money." Africa, we don't have enough money. Don't worry, we'll get you a loan from the IMF. They'll get you the loan. You, Mr. King, can pocket some of that. You pay us some of it. We'll build it for you. We're good to go. Well, what happens is now your Halliburton's or Blackwater, whatever it is, has a leg in that country. Now they're in the country. Now America has a leg in the country. So they're showing up. And so he said, if the guy played ball, we're all good. That guy remains rich. This country makes this company makes a ton of money. America now has a foot in this country. The money never gets to the people, and it remains corrupt. If the leader said, no, I don't want your influence, I'm not playing ball, that's when they would try to do their CIA, covert operations. If that still didn't work, that's when they would attack. So you could look at a Saddam, for example, and you would say, well, we attacked. Was it because we really wanted to give democracy to the Iraqis, or was there other interests? I would argue there was other interests. You know,
I love it. Your jokes are all on point today, bro. They're all hitting right there.
Yeah. So
nah, I don't know. I don't know. Man. I'm not gonna get into my whole thing. My whole
conspiracy theories.
Yeah, because that's why do Americans? This is something that's confused me. Why can't they just say Iran or Iraq?
Dude, I don't know what.
I think that goes right back to, you know, remember the
Iran.
whole the Native American thing where they were like they called them Indians, but we're not Indians. No, we're going to call you Indians. Because there's plenty of words in English and where they use the word "e."
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know what
they don't say. I'm irritated.
They are the worst. They Americans. I say this. I love America. Obviously, I love a lot of things about America, but the American accent shits on every other language. Like every time an American learns a foreign language, they're very, they can't, and you go, it's Iran, they're like, Iran? No. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard.
It's even like the Terminator's coming for you, see, it's part of my conspiracy.
What was it?
Skynet.
Oh, hey, Skynet.
Even like you get that with the Las Vegas Iranians as well. Like when they have that American twinge in their English.
The Las Vegas or Los Angeles?
No, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas Iranians. Who's the Las Vegas Iranians?
There's loads of Iranians in Las Vegas.
Are there?
In Vegas?
LA has the biggest population of Iranians outside of Iran.
Yeah, but okay, so where's the Shahs of
Shahs of Sunset is Los Angeles.
No, there's who's gonna know more about America, dude? Me or you?
Did they move to Las Vegas? I don't know. I haven't been watching it. No.
Isn't there? Okay. Arash, I think it's just your mom and her friends that are in Vegas.
I think they go to Vegas a lot on that show. I don't watch the show, but I think that they go to Vegas a lot.
I always thought there was a giant community of Iranians in Vegas.
No. Iran, Los Angeles. You took the Los and then you stopped listening. It's Los Angeles. Los Angeles.
I don't like his attitude right now. I find him very aggressive, and I feel like we can get this clip and put some cancel culture going on.
It's Los Angeles. No, LA has the biggest population of Iranians outside of Iran. Yeah. So it's called Tehrangeles. They call it
Tehrangeles. I get that.
And those guys on Shahs of Sunset all live in LA. But every LA Persian goes to Vegas a lot. That's kind of a big thing.
So I was basically right. Let's Arash, when you're producing this, so we're gonna. So there's loads of Iranians in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
In Los Angeles.
You know, it's funny actually. This is actually an interesting thing. So the Iranians around Christmas, because Americans all are with family, Las Vegas gets taken over by Iranians and Asians and Jews and anyone who's not Christian.
Not Christian, yeah.
Because you can get good deals. So all of a sudden you have this like big Iranian festival around Christmas. Every Iranian singer, performer, they're all there. So if you go to certain casinos and it's packed with Iranians, like what the hell happened? So you're right. In Christmas time,
I get it. Iranians have this way of making you Iranian without you realizing it, dude. Like I celebrate so many Iranian things that like Nowruz and all that stuff. And when I remember when I was younger, I was coming in, they were just like, just keep jumping over this thing. I was just like, what's going on? Like, I'll tell you why. Most kids grew up listening to Bon Jovi and stuff. I was walking around going bishi bishi mau mau.
Oh yeah,
bishi mau 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 with the black cats. And people were just like, what is this dude? Like, why are you there? But you get trapped into it, and they're very kind of like welcoming Iranians, right?
Yeah, I think we're a very welcoming culture. Matter of fact,
or they steal you and make you honorary Iranian.
Well, you know, we are a celebratory culture. We're a hospitable culture. I remember Anthony Bourdain did a Parts Unknown in Iran, and he traveled the world, and he said he says, you know, I never thought that Iran would be the most hospitable place I'd ever go, and yet they're very hospitable. Iranians, like if you go to an Iranian house, they feed you everything from from the kitchen, etc. And we are, I think we're a warm people. I think that's one of the problems is that, like you said, people in this part of the world know us. Unfortunately, in America, they don't know as well the hospitality, the warmth of the culture. They just know all the negative stuff they hear from the government, right? So that's part of it. And now, you know, the good news is with all of these food shows and food Instagram pages and stuff, I think people discover Iranians through food, the same way they discover Lebanese through food. So it's a great way to bring people together.
I think America is very kind of like, I mean, you know, like the whole passport situation in America, right? Like hardly anyone's got a passport. Not hardly anyone, but majority of people.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have passports. They don't travel.
They kind of just think of, they're very like, okay, I'm not saying Americans are uneducated,
Yeah.
but they're uneducated to the differences between the Arab worlds.
To a lot of
things.
things.
When 9/11 was happening, there were Sikhs who were being, you Muslim, they don't differentiate between the different peoples. Like, you're wearing a turban, you're a Muslim. Well, we don't wear turbans.
Americans don't know a lot about other cultures. You're absolutely right, and it's
and the differences between them, like an Iranian and an Arab and a Moroccan, completely different types of people.
Yeah.
You know.
And that has a lot to do with also the geography of it. They're we're isolated. We have a huge country. You don't need to go anywhere. You can go. A lot of Americans don't travel outside of the U.S. because they don't need to. They might go to a resort in Mexico or something, But that's why we're like, if you live in this region or if you live in Europe, you're surrounded by other countries. You're forced to learn about other countries. You're forced to learn other languages. But we're isolated in that way, and it's unfortunate. Yeah.
So how did Back to School come about?
The Back to School with Maz Jobrani was an idea. I was looking to start a podcast, and my kids would ask me questions that I didn't have answers for. So I thought, rather than Googling the answers, what I'll do is I'll just bring experts on and we'll talk to them and learn from them. And it's really just become an excuse to talk to some interesting people. So we've had on there a guy who helped land the rover on Mars, which was an interesting story. We have on there.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
No, JPL. No, the dude was.
There.
No, the truth is that. Conspiracy. No, the dude was the real deal.
Yeah.
There's a lady who's a cave diver who dives underneath glaciers to find, on unfound organisms. We had Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen was on. We've had FBI guys. We've had all kinds of interesting people. And every episode starts with a question from my kids, and then we get into a conversation. So it's become an excuse to talk to interesting people.
No, I get
You
that.
realize how many people are doing cool shit in the world.
Yeah, it's so true.
You know what I'm saying?
It's so true. Talking about people doing cool shit, you actually brought me to this part now. So this is the part of the show where we exchange gifts.
Okay.
So I've got my gift ready.
Yeah.
I hope you have. You know what? I a lot of my my guests are like athletes or that kind of stuff. So usually they sign their gloves they fought in and stuff. But I was actually just gonna get a bottle of Dour and get you to sign it.
A bottle of what?
Of Dour.
Of Dour, yeah.
So I could give it away, but I couldn't find it. It was closed, the restaurant, so I didn't get it in time. So we will have a bottle of Dour ready for you guys to get. Now, a friend of mine is he's an artist called Rick. He's amazing, and he cuts stuff out of blades. So he gets papers and he blades and he cuts out layers and puts layer upon layer. And then I was like, dude, Maz is coming, do something for him. And he was like, pay me. And I was like, no, Maz is coming, do something. So he made you something very cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So, but you're giving this back unless I get my gift from you. So you better.
Of course, you get a gift.
That watch is pretty nice. So he made this for you.
Oh, wow.
And I think this is pretty cool.
Holy moly, Ray, look at that.
So
Ray,
what he
check
does
this out.
is he cuts layers out of different layers and places them on top of each other to make the picture. And I thought that would be really nice for
this dude is talented.
Yeah, dude.
So this has texture to it?
Yeah. So if you look at it closely, that's all different layers of cut out stuff. Yeah, Ricky.
Holy shit.
So I don't know how you're gonna take it to the States, so you might have to pack that.
Bro, I'm gonna use this at the airport when they ask my ID.
You'll be like, here you go.
How cool is that? Wow, what's his name?
Rick Tarek.
Rick Tarek.
Rick's Blades.
You're very talented. I'm gonna sell this in the U.S. as an NFT. Thank you very much.
There you go, mate. Who knows, dude? What is an NFT, bro?
Non-fungible.
Do you actually know what it is, though?
It's been explained to me.
It's been explained to me 4 times, bro.
Yeah.
And
you
all I know is
something like this, and you
take
a picture of it, and you make it there's one of a kind.
Shall we make that an NFT after the show?
You can make you add some audio to go with it, and then you put it out there.
Dude, the world's changing a lot with what's making money and crypto and all of this stuff. And I'm just a caveman. I'm confused, bro. I don't know what to do.
I just got into the crypto shit, dude. I don't even know what I'm doing.
Tomorrow, I've got these 3 guys coming on, and they're just like monsters in the crypto world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you might want to.
Okay, I'll do it.
Have a conversation with them as well. Yeah, it's crazy. Tell me did you ever have a time where you bombed and you were just like,
Never bombed. Next question. Yeah, no.
How did you deal with that in the beginning?
I mean, in the beginning, you'd be upset, but then you realize. So this is what it is. Comedians, we perform 5, maybe 10 times a week, and when you can adjust your mind to realize you're gonna have another set either that night or the next night. It's coming up. Then you just keep moving. So I've had sets where I performed and it was like I felt like a rock star, and I got off stage. I said, "I'm the greatest thing since Eddie Murphy." You know, that's it. And then the same night I go to another club and I bomb, and I go, "Oh my God, I got to quit this business." So once you realize that, oh, you know what? It's not about one show. It's a series of shows. It's going to keep going. It's always a work in progress, on and on and on and on and on. You just keep moving on. It's like life, man. It's like you can't worry too much about the defeats of the past, because then that'll just bring you down. I remember I played baseball in high school, and they would tell us sometimes, like, you would make an error when you're in the field. The ball comes to you, you don't pick it up right, you know, it goes through your legs. And the coaches would say, listen, don't worry, forget about that. Because if you think about that the rest of the game, every time you go to bat, you're thinking about that. And you go, just look forward. So I that's how I've learned to deal with it. I don't think about what happened. You know, if you do well, it feels good. You go to bed with a smile on your face. And if you do poorly, you're like replaying it in your head and like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. But you don't like bask in it and let it bring you down.
But isn't it ever confusing where, I mean, I'm guessing bombing is worse at your stage of your career now, right? For you feel it more because you're like, I'm established now, so what's going on?
There's a comedian named Dom Herrera who is someone I look up to, and he's one of the comics that was inspirational when I first started. And he said one time, he goes, you know, we all still bomb. It's just that the longer you do it, the less you bomb. So yeah, that bomb happens, and again, it's out of your control. Sometimes it's out of your control. You know, the parking was bad. The show started late because people were coming in late, or it was too hot, or they didn't speak the language, whatever it is. I mean, last night I actually had a guy in the front row. He didn't speak the language. It was very funny. He was very sweet. He came with a box of popcorn, sat next to his wife, and I go, hey, what's your name? Whatever. He's like, I don't know speak. And I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. And then I was like, and then I asked his wife, I go, you speak? She doesn't, you know? And then she was translating for him. So if you end up in a room with a lot of people who don't speak English, they're just going to stare at you. I've done shows before. That's when you need
to start getting active with your jokes, right?
Well, listen, I've done shows before where like I was like, they didn't speak English that well, and I finished, and then they clapped like it was a play. I go, oh, okay. Well, they seem to enjoy it. So, there's always a bomb somewhere coming, but you just you know, you move on again.
I'm guessing it's the same with hecklers, right? It's like
hecklers. You know, different people deal with hecklers differently. There's comedians who are insult comics or aggressive comedians, and they will, you know, make fun of the heckler. You know, what are you? You know, whatever. I don't come to your job and knock the mop out of your hand. That kind of stuff. I'm not that. That's not my personality. So when it comes to hecklers, I'll either kind of point out to how ridiculous they're being, or like when under the Trump administration, people would get really upset and scream like, "You can't do that!" And I was like, I learned to basically feng shui it. I would just take their energy. I'd be like, wow, I'm so happy that you have this opinion. Thank you so much. You know, maybe you can send me an email or something. This is, and then I'm not sending you an email. This is
like you actually replied. To that comment. Like I really wanted you to send me an email.
Yeah. So it's just, you know, you learn to deal with them.
Yeah. So any specials coming up? Any new ones?
The special that's out there right now is called Pandemic Warrior. That's the one I shot in 2019 in Dubai. It's available on OSN here in the region. And in the States, it's available on something called Peacock TV, which is NBC's streamer. We're working on TV show ideas, busy with the podcast, and busy with the tour. The tour is going to start taking off. I'm calling it the Things Are Looking Bright Tour. I know we're still not out, and there's still a lot of people that are, you know, in danger with this pandemic. But I feel like we're slowly starting to get there. So it's nice for me. I'm happy. I'm doing a lot of shows where it's limited capacity shows. People are either vaccinated or the clubs are taking people's temperatures, all that kind of stuff, whatever they can. So I've gotten vaccinated. I'm encouraging people to get vaccinated. So You haven't vaccinated?
No.
What? Are you that crazy?
Maz, come on.
You're a conspiracy
Baba,
theorist
gosh
all
bede,
day
Baba,
long?
gosh bede, Babin.
Jabber.
No.
Jabber, what?
Bro.
What do you think? They're going to put a chip in you?
Dude, it's not about chip.
What
it's
is it?
about these things, and I'm saying this now, cancel me. It takes a long time for these things to be tested, dude.
You make a good point with that.
I would just say, I'm not saying I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'm just saying, until they say you have to,
let me tell you,
I think I'm happy enough and healthy enough to get.
Let me tell you,
to get through this.
Let me tell you, I got the Pfizer. I had one side effect. I had a hard-on for 2 weeks. But besides that,
wait, is that what it does?
Besides that, I had the best sex of my life. Listen,
I might get vaccinated. Then.
No, listen.
So
you make a good point with that. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I will say, because what I advise, because I personally, I don't ever. I think we live in a society now where everybody thinks they know everything because they can go on Google or whatever, WebMD, and Google and be like, well, it says this, therefore that. Doctors go to university for 10 years, whatever it is, to become experts in certain things. So what I do is, listen, if I'm going to buy a car, I talk to my friends who know about cars.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be investing, I talk to all my friends who know about investing. And I listen to both sides. Because, by the way, hold on, let me finish. There are people who
glad
are...
that we started this
listen,
conversation.
There
Let
are
it begin.
people, listen, there are people who are... You know, when it comes to investing, you'd say, should I invest in Bitcoin? You have people who go, yes, you definitely should. You have people who go, no, you shouldn't. So I take all of their opinions, that they're experts, they know what they're talking about, and I make my decision. So similarly with the vaccine, the more I talk to doctors, the more I look at people that I trust, the more I look at people who've done the research, and you're absolutely right. We don't know the side effects because this is brand new. There's two things. One is, from what I understand, they say that the technology, the reason they were able to make this so fast, the technology for this, I'm telling you, slow it down. The technology for this already existed. So a lot of the shit that's there was just a reprogramming for this specific virus. Secondly, and more important, this is the most important part. The one thing we do know is, a year later, we know the side effects of COVID, and we know that they can be...
Can you still catch COVID now?
Yes.
Okay.
So we know that COVID is out there. We know that when you do get COVID, that the results can be very serious, and we know that they can be chronic and they remain. Like, they're now seeing a lot of people who got COVID, they recovered, but they still have fatigue. They have damage to their lungs. So when you sit there, and this is the decision I made. You can make whatever decision you want. But when I sit there and I go, okay, I know that if I get this thing, it could fuck me up.
Maybe.
It could fuck me up.
Maybe not at all.
But it can fuck me up.
But maybe not at all.
Yeah, but more people have been fucked
Let's
up by
just
this.
keep repeating that. It'll be a good clip for the thing.
But listen. But
Take
more people,
from, it will fuck me up.
But that's the problem, because a lot of people tried to say, no, well then if you don't wear your seatbelt.
The head guy of vaccines in the world has said, don't take it, guys.
Okay, I don't know who this head guy is.
It's very clear. Head guy of vaccines.
Dr. Vaccine.
Dr. Head Guy Vaccine.
Dr. Vaccine.
I said, no, I'll email it to you, and I'll get the details, and I'll WhatsApp it to you. But there's a lot of people, on the flip side, a lot of doctors, even people who are very, very high, who are going, guys, there's no need for this, don't take it, it's not ready. My one question is this. Can taking this jab kill me? If you can tell me 100% you will not die, nothing will happen to you, give it to me, bro. If there's 1% that I'll never see my kids again or anything, taking something I don't really need to take.
You're right.
Then I'm not gonna take it.
I don't know if this jab might kill you, but I do
people.
know that COVID can kill you.
But it's killed people.
This jab has killed people.
Jabs have, there's people who have died.
Now
after.
you're on a different website than I am.
It doesn't matter.
And I don't want to get on your website.
No, there have been deaths, vaccine-related deaths.
Not that I know of. I've never heard of such a thing.
That's because you're going www.farsivaccine.com.
No, but listen. No, hold on. If listen, there are people who have gotten the vaccine and then died afterwards, but not related to the vaccine.
Why?
People have died from other causes. That's
convenient, isn't it?
No. Listen, dude.
Look, I'm not anti-vaccine, and I'm not a preacher, and I will never be vegan about it. I'll never go to someone and go, you should.
And I'm not going to be someone who says you have to get the vaccine.
You have been pretty vegan about this whole thing, I must say.
What I would say is I encourage people to get the vaccine. I do. All the time I encourage people to get the vaccine, because I feel that after a year and a half of this shit that we all went through, the way out of it is herd immunity. And at a certain point, either enough people are gonna get it where where people got to back. Listen, I don't know how it was here. In the U.S., we had Dr. Atlas, who was running the response through the administration. He called for herd immunity from the top. He goes, forget all this shit. Let's do herd immunity. You do the numbers, that means 3 million people got to die in the U.S. before we get to herd immunity. That's just how it works. That's the percentages of herd immunity. So now we've done a thing where if you look at the U.S., look at the UAE, look at a lot of these countries that have vaccinated, all of a sudden the U.S. is fully vaxxed, 40%, one dose, 50%. You see our numbers going down. Yeah. You see us opening up.
I agree.
And listen,
New Zealand.
Johnson and Johnson.
0 vaccine, 0 cases.
Johnson and Johnson.
They make shampoo and baby oil. Yeah.
So Johnson and Johnson, people got blood clots, right? They said that was one of the side effects. People got blood clots. Yeah. 7 people out of 7 million. That's actually the term.
I could be one of those
1
7.
in a million.
I could
go buy a lottery ticket.
My mom has always told me I'm 1 in a million since I was small. By the way,
let me just take all of this and put it into a little bit of a philosophical question.
Okay.
My question to you is, how special do you think you are?
Pretty damn special.
Okay.
No.
That's where you're wrong.
No.
I'm not special.
I'm not saying that I'm special.
No, hold on.
I'm just saying it's a big risk.
This is what I'm telling you. Listen, how special do you think you are? This is how I see it. We're going to die.
Yep.
I'm going to walk out of this building. I'm going to put my foot in the elevator. It's going to be, the shaft won't be there. I'm going to fall and die. Or I'll be walking down the street. Tree's going to hit my head. I'm going to die. Okay. I'm going to get a disease. Something's going to happen to me.
Pretty morbid view of your day today, bro.
Listen, what I'm saying is something is going to happen.
Hopefully not today, bro. That's a lot to kind of have almost happen to you today.
My point is we all are going to face death at some point.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people who I think are way too precious about themselves, and they go,
no,
if I get the vaccine and I get a little and a little what's going to happen? I go, motherfucker, you could get coronavirus. Yeah. You could get cancer. You could get a million things. So I'm not saying motherfucker to you. I'm saying to whoever's watching
I'll be a motherfucker. We're all motherfuckers.
So what I'm saying is, we can also, we become too precious about, like, people sometimes get afraid of the unknown because they go, I don't know. What if I'm the guy who jumps off the bungee and it snaps? Yeah. I go, the odds of that happening are so little. And I go, so what you got to do, you as an individual, anybody needs to look at a few things. Number one, like you said, look, if you have health problems, then yes, don't mess with it. But if you're a healthy person and you have kids around you and you look at like what's going on in society and you go, wow, this is going to help me, be a part of society. This is going to get us as a society through this. You start making decisions and you go, okay, so maybe I should. What's the worst thing that could happen? And again, you're saying people died. I haven't heard of anybody dying. But again, I don't think that we're all going to die at some point. And
you want me to die today?
I don't want you to die today. I don't want you to get COVID. I don't want you to get COVID and get it in a serious fashion where, I mean, everybody that I've seen, like, I'll give you a great example real quickly, and then I'll stop preaching. Governor Chris Christie, the big heavy dude from New Jersey, who was helping Donald Trump do his debate prep for the elections. I was listening. There was a great program where they had a bunch of Republicans.
A bunch of bastards.
No. There was a bunch of Republicans who did not trust the vaccine. They said, we don't trust the vaccine. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the vaccine. Even though it was started under a Republican president, that's fine. We're not going to take it. And then they were having people talk to these people about the vaccine. And Chris Christie comes on, and he actually was one of the more influential speakers to this group of Republicans. And he goes, let me tell you guys. He goes, I got coronavirus in the Oval Office or in the White House. He goes, the White House was supposed to be the most protected place in the world. He goes, when we were preparing for the debates, he goes, there was 8 people in that room. The president, so it was Trump, him, Hope Hicks. He goes, out of those 8 people, 7 of us got COVID. He goes, right off the bat, let me tell you that. He goes, now you hear about people getting COVID, like you just said. People go, well, it could be extreme, it could not be extreme. He goes, let me tell you something. He goes, Hope Hicks was the healthiest person I knew. She's in her 20s or whatever, late 20s, early 30s. He goes, she would run like 5 miles a day, healthy, fit as a fiddle, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, blah, blah, blah. He goes, she called me up and said, for 2 weeks, she said this is the worst illness she'd ever experienced. Bedridden, fevers, shaking, just like deathbed shit. And he goes, that was the healthiest. He goes, I am heavy. He goes, I ended up in the hospital. He goes, I survived because I had access to the best medicines or whatever. He goes, you know, whatever it was, ventilators. He goes, I was at my deathbed. And he goes, and I'm lucky. And he goes, but I'll tell you, I have issues. We have issues that continue afterwards. I'm still dealing with those issues, and this is months ago. And he goes, I will, and he's talking to these people who were people that said they didn't want to get the vaccine. He goes, I have a cousin in her early 60s. She got it. And he goes, she also was relatively healthy. And then he goes, her husband got it. And he goes, they both passed away in their early 60s. And he goes, statistically speaking, they should not have passed away. He goes, this thing is a motherfucker. And so when he was done talking, those people who were skeptical about getting the vaccine, they said, you know what, we are now going to look into it. Because again, it's what you said, it's the unknown, what are the side effects, versus the known. We know it can be and has been, it's a deadly thing. So when I put that together, the choice for me is simple. I got the vaccine, my mother got the vaccine, my wife got the vaccine. We just gave my 12-year-old son the vaccine. Because again, and when I talk to doctors like Bassem Youssef, who was on your show, or
we had an argument about that one. I tell you,
one of my friends who's a heart surgeon. I mean, every doctor friend I have, first people who got it, just got it. But again, you could be skeptical because you're right that we don't have, we don't know the results a while later.
I just feel like in a world where I'm a free man on the land, I should be able to choose whether I take it or not, and it shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't be forced.
I mean, I don't know what the rule is here, but in America, you can choose, and people are choosing. I mean, absolutely, and I agree with you. I had this discussion with my Uber driver. He was a Russian guy who was like,
Russians do not get corona.
Well, he goes, I don't trust the American one. He goes, I trust the Russian one more, but I'm still not getting it. And I said, all right, you know, it's your choice ultimately, you know. But I personally have been encouraging people. I say, you know, talk to your doctors and weigh it. You know, life is not, unfortunately, life is not a math equation. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's simple. If it's 2 plus 2 is 4, we all get it. Life, a lot of times, you know, a lot of times you go like, you know, I remember my best friend was getting married, and he had told me a year before, he's like, you're going to be in the wedding, you know, you come in, you know, you're one of the groomsmen, here's the place to get your tuxedo. They don't do anything that day. I had to go to his wedding from a year before, everything's planned. My brother lets me know like a couple months before, he's like, I'm graduating from college. When? That same day. I'm like, shit, here's the decision I got to make, right? So I wanted to go to my friend's wedding, but at that time my father had already gone back to Iran, so I was the oldest son of the family, and my sister pointed it out to me. She goes, listen, you could go to your friend's wedding, but you're kind of the father figure here, so your brother would, you know, it makes a big, he goes, your friend is going to have a lot of other people there. Your brother, our brother, needs you there. And I was that made my decision easy, right? So that, but it was not black and white. So similarly, in this world we're in, vaccine, COVID, I know the results here. I don't know the results here, but this could potentially help me, you know, get through this and help us as a society get through it. That makes my decision very easy. I go, I'm done, I'm getting it. So I did.
So this sponsorship that you have with Pfizer, how much are you getting for it, bro?
I wish.
So last couple of things before, because I know like you guys are on a strict schedule. A lot of comedians are doing podcasts right now. Do you watch any of them? Do you have any favorites?
I listen to Mark Maron's podcast, WTF. I listen to that pretty religiously. I think he's a great interviewer. I think that he does a good job in like, it's almost like a therapy session. So, and he interviews a lot of people I'm interested in, and so that's my favorite. I also listen to The Daily. It's not a comedian thing. It's a New York Times podcasts where they dive deep. Those are the two I listen to the most. Once in a while, I listen to Joe Rogan. I'm a friend of his, and I was on his a long time ago. The reason I maybe don't listen to as much is because they're so long. Like 4 hours. You gotta really put in some time. Yeah, those are kind of the main guys I'm listening to.
Do you ever listen to any Bobby Lee or Theo Vaughn or those guys?
I don't listen to Bobby or Theo. I've listened to a couple Bobbies. I listened to Bobby when he had Eric Griffin on.
Yeah.
Love Bobby. Bobby's a friend of mine too. Theo's a friend. I've been on Theo's. I haven't been on Bobby's.
I think that will be getting you on Tiger Belly would be amazing. Dude.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Bobby's
Bobby,
great.
get him on, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Dude, it's been absolutely amazing, and thanks so much for taking the time out to come down here.
Thanks for having. This is amazing, man.
Yeah. He's such a cool dude.
Talented.
Yeah. So whenever guests come in and stuff, I'm like, dude, I know you charge for this stuff, but it's like it's nice. You know?
Yeah.
Like, just do my guest the thing, bro.
Yeah.
We're now going to go on to that section after the camera's off where I have a list of 18 Iranian mums and aunties that we need to do private WhatsApp videos for.
Sure.
Just
hey,
like, so I'll give you the name. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
He thinks I'm joking, but I'm not. So thanks so much for coming down, bro. And
thanks for having me, buddy.
You know, much success, and hopefully next time you're down, we'll do another one. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and
when I hear your accent, I think of Booyakasha.
Booyakasha. What do you think of Sasha? You like him?
I love him. He's great.
Oh, here's another one. Do you ever get compared to Omid?
Not really.
No. Is there any kind of like
I love
beef
Omid.
there going on?
Man, Omid is one of my favorite people in the world. Omid is a guy who, first of all, it was fun. Under the lockdown, we were able to do some like Instagram lives with Omid and Max Amini and Tehran and clubhouses with Amir K and a handful of other guys. Omid is a guy who is funny off stage as much as he is on stage. I love hanging out with Omid, just listening to him tell stories, and he just makes me laugh. He's like a brother to me. I love that guy.
Do you reckon we could potentially make some money out of this Iranian-American comedian vs British-American comedian YouTube boxing match?
Let's do it. We'll meet in Greenland.
Yeah, I mean, you see these guys are making a lot of money off these people fighting each other. So we could do a America vs UK, Omid versus Maz boxing match. Man, I'm the promoter for that. So you guys just hit me up at Jibber and send the money over, and we'll get it sorted, man. But dude, thanks again, and that's it. Boom.
He's gonna get vaccinated. That's amazing.
I'm not getting vaccinated.